Hi, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you're going to hear this question a lot pertaining to the presidential assassination attempt that occurred last weekend,
Uh-huh.
or ex-president. I don't know if you could walk me through this. I've heard some people, I mean, I'm a Trump supporter, but I've heard some people say Trump is the little horn, a.k.a. like the trumpet. And, it does say in Revelation, I think, that the little horn would survive a death, basically, and come back. And I've seen people on, like, Facebook saying, oh, it was an angel that protected him and so on. So I'd like you to walk through and tell us, like, what are the chances that Trump could be the little horn?
Zero. The reason it's zero is the little horn is only mentioned in Daniel. There's two little horns in Daniel. One of them is in chapter 7, and one of them is in chapter 8. The little horn in chapter 7 grows out of the Roman Empire. And chapter 7 of Daniel has 4 kingdoms that would arise. The first was that which was present in Daniel's own time, the Babylonian, which was likened to a lion. Then the second was like a bear, which is the Medo-Persian Empire. The third one was like a leopard, which was the Grecian Empire under Alexander the Great. And the fourth kingdom, a fierce beast with 10 horns, is said to, it's the Roman Empire. I think every Bible scholar agrees that's the Roman Empire. Now, the Roman Empire dies, and out of the Roman Empire, there grows a little horn who does a whole bunch of damage. The Roman Empire actually died back in like 476 AD or something like that. In other words, it's been about 1,500 years since the end of the Roman Empire. There were some serious evils that grew out of the successor to the Roman Empire, and many throughout history have identified those evils with the little horn of Daniel. But certainly there's no possibility that anyone living in the 21st century can be described as having emerged from the historic Roman Empire. That empire has been gone a long time. There have been so many empires since then that obviously the time frame for the little horn is in the past, not the future. Now, the other little horn, the only other one, is in Daniel chapter 8, and that one grows out of a he-goat. There's a ram, and there's a he-goat, and we're told that the ram represents the Medo-Persian Empire. And the he-goat represents the Grecian Empire, and its primary horn is said to be its first king, which was Alexander the Great. Now, in Daniel 8, the original horn, Alexander the Great, is broken, and 4 horns come up in its place. Well, that happened. Alexander the Great died quite young, about 33 years old, I believe. And he was replaced by 4 generals, and they divided his kingdom 4 ways. So these became like 4 separate countries in a way, or groups of countries that were under these 4 men in the empire. And out of one of those 4, there grows a little horn. And I think all scholars who are familiar with the history and with Daniel know that that little horn represents Antiochus IV, who is also called Antiochus Epiphanes. And he does terrible things that are described in Daniel, which Antiochus Epiphanes did. The fact that the little horn in Daniel grows out of the Grecian Empire, especially out of the horns in the 4 countries into which it was divided after Alexander died, again makes it very clear that the little horn belongs to ancient history. Both the little horn in chapter 7, which grows out of the Roman Empire, and the little horn in chapter 8, which grows out of the Grecian Empire. Both of them occurred hundreds of years before the time of Christ. We're not looking forward to anything like that. Now, I think maybe the persons you've heard from, who obviously are dispensationalists and don't really know very much about the Bible, apparently, they've identified these little horns with the beast in Revelation. Now, the beast in Revelation has 7 heads and 10 horns, and in my opinion, the beast is not an individual person, obviously, because it says the 7 heads, it says in chapter 17, I think around verse 10, the 7 heads are 7 kings, and the 10 horns are 10 kings. So there's at least 17 kings that are part of this beast. It's not a man, it's an empire. It's a political system with many rulers, part of it. Now, one of those heads, it says, receives a a mortal head wound, but the beast lives on. So what the head that receives a mortal head wound is one of the kings. One of the kings of the seven is killed, but the system that he belonged to lives on. Now, I'm not sure who that head is. It could be Nero. Some people think it's Nero. Others think it's someone else. But the point is that the beast doesn't die, and the beast doesn't even almost die. But one of its heads, which is one of the kings in that system, actually does die. If it receives a mortal head wound, if it's mortal, that means it died. The head died. But the beast had 6 good heads unaffected, and therefore it continued on with 6 heads instead of 7, and it didn't have any problem surviving. So there's nothing. Now, I will say this: from the time I was young, and I was in the ministry from time I was 16, and I was a dispensationalist. I was under dispensational teaching, and so which means we didn't understand any of these prophecies. We were told that they meant a certain thing, and we just accepted that without looking at the context, without realizing that that's a nonsensical interpretation, and so forth. But I remember back when I was 17 years old, people saying, "Oh, John F. Kennedy's the Antichrist because he received a mortal head wound, and they're keeping his body, I don't know, what do they call it? I don't remember what you call it when you keep someone frozen and they wake up later." They said someday John F. Kennedy's going to reemerge because he had a mortal head wound, but he's going to live again. And they were interpreting Revelation this way. They were thinking that the beast is a man rather than a system of government, and that the beast died from a mortal head wound, although we're told specifically it's only one of its 7 heads that received that wound. And it says, and the beast lived on. So there's nothing, now we can have a new generation who's just as sensationalistic and just as ignorant of the Bible, making similar claims about, Trump, because there was an assassination attempt. He was struck in the head, not mortally. He was struck in the ear. I would make that part of the head, and yet he lived. So you're going to find all kinds of people who have almost zero understanding of Bible prophecy, making all kinds of bold comparisons, which frankly don't make any sense at all. So don't worry about it. He is not the little horn, and he's not the beast. All right. By the way, that doesn't mean he can't turn out to be a bad guy. I don't think Trump is a bad guy. He's been demonized by his foes, which is why he got shot almost certainly. But they were, they've all lied about him. Every time Biden or any of the foes of Trump talk about Trump to demonize him, they compare him with Hitler, but they've never actually said what there is about Trump that's like Hitler. I've been hearing him say it for a long time, and I've been following, Trump's career, and I'm not even sure of anything about Trump that resembles Hitler in any way. So it's just kind of a political smear job. They say that he said that there were, fine people on both sides of the controversy between Nazis and another group of people. He never said that. No one who ever heard his speech, which is edited to make it sound like he said that, no one who ever heard the speech believed that he said that. And even recently, Snopes, which is a liberal, allegedly, fact-checking organization, they came out and admitted, yeah, he never said that. He never said that about Nazis at all. So, people who think he did have been listening to the mainstream media who don't tell the truth, don't have any conscience, obviously. They just want to get rid of their adversary. He never said anything favorable toward communism. He never said anything favorable toward fascism. But they'll twist everything he says. And I'm not saying Trump's a good guy. I don't know if he's good or bad. I don't know the man. He might. I don't know if there's very many politicians that are good guys. But as far as his enemies are concerned, they're certainly not good guys. They'll lie and slander him and say things about him which, if believed, would induce many people to try to get rid of him. We celebrate Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who participated in a plot to kill Hitler. And if Trump is indeed another Hitler, no wonder there are wackos out there who think that killing him would be doing the world a service. But of course, they've been informed by the mainstream media instead of paying any attention to what actually is going on. The mainstream media doesn't tell the truth. And so, if you're going to get some opinions about Trump, you better get it from his own actions and his own speeches, listening to them, not listening to his critics, because critics have no conscience at all. And, there's many things about this attempt on his life that are indicative that that it wasn't just a lone wolf. It's hard to know how Biden's, Secret Service department assigned to Trump would have allowed a man who was seen with a gun climbing onto the rooftop, pointed out by the police. Even a policeman climbed to the top of the building, saw the guy. The guy pointed the gun at the policeman, and the policeman just backed down and went down the ladder again instead of confronting him or alerting the president, who was making a speech at the time. I mean, this was a comedy of errors as far as Secret Service is concerned, and it seems obvious that either the Secret Service have been totally compromised in terms of their quality and their competence, or else they've been compromised in terms of their mission. And they're taking orders from somebody who wouldn't necessarily find the disappearance of Trump to be disadvantageous to them. Anyway, I can't say any more because no more information has come out, but what has come out points very plainly a certain direction, and there's no evidence against the theory I just promoted, but there's tons of it in favor of it. So, yeah, I don't think Trump's the bad guy here. Trump could be a bad guy, but we had him as president for 4 years already. And some people think he was a bad guy then. And sure, he responded, I think, wrongly to the COVID situation and maybe some other situations. But he wasn't Hitler. And there's no reason to believe he wants to be Hitler now. So even if Trump is a bad person in many respects, his enemies are clearly worse. And we don't usually get a choice between people that are merely, bad a little bit, or maybe a little more than a little bit, on the one hand, and people who are utterly corrupt and disingenuous